Please welcome writer, director, S.S. Rajamouli. Oh my goodness. It's so joyful. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's such a joyful film. It's incredible. I wanted to ask you from the start, the fact that at the end you paid tribute to these historical leaders in India. When you introduced your film, you mentioned that it's not historical accurate and you're not interested in that. But at the end, you do bring history and you celebrate the Indian leaders.
Yeah, that is. What I did was I took a period of time in the lives of Komaram Bhim and Alluri Sita Ramaraju in which we don't know what happened to them. They left their homes when they were in their 20s, and for 2-3 years we don't know what happened to them. And they came back and they started fighting against the oppressors. We have the before history, after history, and we don't know what happened in between. So I made this tale, a fictional tale in that time period. But after that, India got independence in 1947, but unfortunately, both the heroes weren't alive by the time that happened. I didn't want to end the film in a sad note. I wanted to end it on a high note. So it's a kind of celebration. The end part is a kind of celebration that India attended its independence, and celebrating all the leaders who just fought against oppression, which basically represents the spirit of Alluri Sita Ramaraju and Komaram Bhim. That's why in the end you don't see them in their get-ups. You see in the normal get-up, but they're celebrating the spirit of not yielding to the oppressor.
Wonderful. And the fact that we get to see you in the closing credits, how did that come about? It's so beautiful seeing you up there dancing and singing as well.
Like I said, it was a celebration, not just for the characters in the film. It's a celebration for the audience. So whatever makes them smile, laugh a little bit towards the end of the film, we would do it. And yeah, it's nice to appear in the screen and say, hey guys, this is me who has done the film. Just in case you forget.
Yeah. I've watched the film many, many times, and what blows me away is how much emotion you build before action sequences, where the action sequences take us to fantasy and crazy worlds, but it's grounded deeply in emotion. Can you tell us about that approach?
I think action and emotion go hand in hand. An action sequence which has a good ground build-up in emotion really gets enhanced or multiplied tenfold. I really believe that. I have been inspired by great filmmakers, by great films like Ben-Hur, Braveheart, all these films. And the reason why we feel those action sequences are so incredible is because the emotion that's built up before. And also, human beings can do extraordinary things when they are emotionally charged up. That we know in real life. We have seen that many times. So combine those both, and we have great action sequences. I really believe that has been my philosophy from the beginning. If I want an action sequence, there has to be a reason, an emotional reason, for that action sequence to happen on screen.
Mm-hmm. Where, like, were you aware or expecting the audience reaction to all the action sequence. For example, I was watching when Beam comes to rescue Ram, and they have this incredible emotional impact connection, and then Ram is on his shoulders. The audience cheered and clapped, and you believed everything afterwards, but it was, you preceded it by this incredible emotional connection scene. Is that how you plan things?
Yes, very much. When I start writing the scenes, when I imagine the visuals in my mind, I imagine them on a screen with a theater, with audience. Right, in my mind, I always imagine that way, and I imagine exactly when they would erupt at what dB then, what level of dB that they erupt. I imagine that in my mind, and I work towards achieving that.
There is so much freedom visually in your films, and there is special effects and CGI used, but you never use CGI just to show off. It comes from organically from the story. Can you tell us about your usage of special effects?
Visual effects, as we know, is a tool, like a camera or a background music. Even visual effects is a tool to convey our emotion to the audience. Nothing more, nothing less. One thing is like the images in my mind themselves are larger than life, are bigger. So I need this tool of visual effects to be to convey those, to bring in those images. So I essentially, once we establish in our mind that visual effects is a tool, not a character. Visual effects is not a character, then I think it will blend really well with the story, and it won't stand out. Only the emotion will carry forward, and it won't be on your face.
Yeah, you should teach American filmmakers. You should go to the Marvel Studios and then a few things. I wanted to ask you about the Telugu, the fact that actually the version you guys saw is the original version. When it was released on Netflix and the movie theaters, it was in Hindu. Can you tell us about why was it the Hindu version is the one that we saw first, and the original, the one you created, was the Telugu language?
That's a part of the crazy deal that went through in India. I made the film in Telugu version, my native language, but we have many film fields, and we have many audiences who speak only Hindi, only Tamil, only Kannada. So we dubbed our language into five Indian languages. And when it came to streaming, Netflix bought only the Hindi version, and there is another platform in India, ZEE5. I mean, it's available across the world. ZEE5 is available across the world, but people don't know that that platform exists. But Netflix, bought only the Hindi version. So,
I grew up. I mean, I don't know a lot about Indian culture. I mean, I know about Indian films, but I grew up understanding the Ramayana and Mahabharata, Indian epics. Was that an influence to the film?
a big influence for all my films, not just RRR. I have read the stories as a very young kid and kept on reading them throughout my life. There are hundreds of variations of those epics, which cater to young kids, young adults, grown-ups, philosophical versions, poetic versions, action versions. There's so many versions. and I have read many of them, and they are a big influence on all my films, including RRR.
And when did you realize the about the story, the fact that you were going to have two freedom fighters, which are based on the true story, but you took it to a bigger fictional level? When did you think about, creating the story around those two freedom fighters?
It happened on levels. For a long time, I wanted to do a multi-starrer. I like the idea of just two heroes being on screen together. It can be just having a cup of coffee, both of them having a cup of coffee, or just both of them beating each other to death, whatever it is, from this level to that level. Just having a multi-starrer is, I like the idea so much. Um, that is one line of thought. The second one is like when I saw Inglorious Bastards and suddenly Hitler was shot in a theater. I thought that was incredible. That really opened my eyes, and we don't need to be really shackled by historical accuracy when you are making a film. When you are making a documentary, when you are writing a textbook, obviously you have to give the historical, it has to be historically accurate. But when you are doing a film, that is not what you're trying to do. You're not giving a history lesson. You're essentially making audience feel certain emotions. So that was a big eye-opener for me. And lastly, The Motorcycle Diaries. It's a beautiful film. And we are seeing the story of a random guy named Shay who is having a kind of travelogue, which is nice. And suddenly at the end of the film, the director tells us it's actually Che Guevara. It's also I don't know whether it's a historically accurate film or it's a fictional story, but I thought that was great. That can be adapted to any culture, many of the stories can be adapted. So all these three put together, at some point of time, I realized I have Komuram Bhim, I have Allur Sitaramaraju. Both of them are born at the same time. Both of them left their houses at the same time. They came back after 2-3 years. We don't know what happened in that time. I have a great story here.
And did you write the story? By the way, before I get there, you write your stories with your dad. So your dad was the co-writer of the story. What is it like being at home, living with your dad and working on scripts?
It's great, right? Like, how many people in the world will get a chance to dictate their dads? Now, how many people will get a chance to order their dads to do something? So I get the chance as a director. I order my writer to do that. No, you are wrong. You do this way. And I think that's incredible, right?
You're telling me that you have upper hand over your dad?
Absolutely, I'm the director.
And was the story all along with the two stars in mind? Those are the two biggest stars in India. It was always, you wrote for them in mind.
Yeah, initially, my idea was to do a kind of romantic comedy film with these two stars. Initially, that was the idea. I even wrote a small story on it, and my wife listened to the story and said, "Who's going to watch a love story from you? You just come to terms with it." And I was taken aback. I was totally depressed that my wife didn't think that I could make a romantic movie. But anyway, I started looking for a bigger story. Then, like I said earlier, I hit up on that idea.
And is that why the movie's called RRR? Is the initials of the three of you?
Yeah, that's a funny story. Like when we announced the project, I didn't have a title for the film, but we need to refer to the project with something. So someone came up with an idea, like, because it is Ramarao, one hero, Ramcharan, one hero, Rajamouli, the director. Let's just put it as #RRR to announce the film. But all the fans and audiences thought that was the title, and they started referring to it as RRR. And then we realized people are thinking this is the title, and we said, guys, this is not the title. We are just working it as we are using it as a working title, but they are already fixed in their mind that RRR is the title. So we didn't know what to do. So we ended up naming the film as
Embracing it.
RRR.
Yeah, and then you came up afterward with Rise, Roar, and Revolt.
Yeah, I mean, we announced a kind of competition for the fans, like expand the RRR, and they came up with different ideas, and we took some of them and used that.
Tell us about the mix of genres, the fact that the movie seamlessly moves from dance to song to action to drama. Is that something that's seamless for you to just like no boundaries? Let's just mix all the genres.
All the Indian epic tales that I have read are similar in that sense. They flow. It flows from anger to humor to dance to song to emotions to the way of the flavors. They keep changing, but there is a grammar to that. You just can't have any scene in any which order. There is a kind of grammar which we call it the rasa. The emotion is called the rasa. Which rasa has to flow into which rasa? There is a grammar to it.
Okay.
I'm not formally educated in that, but when I started working under my father as an assistant, I had the chance to work with many big writers. They used to discuss how it should be, do's and don'ts of how to travel from one scene to the other scene. So I learned from them on how to do it. Indian stories essentially have all the ingredients in them in a story. Basically, we try to give something for someone in the whole family, whether it's a kid, whether it's a granddad, or the mom, dad, sister, whatever. Everyone should like something in the movie. That's the.
But do you find yourself breaking those rules and expanding from it?
I mean, first you need to know the rules to break them, right? So we understand the rules, and it's not that, okay, I want to break this rule. It doesn't happen like that. If we create something and it feels great to visualize or see or hear, even if it is breaking the rule, I don't mind it. I don't go about, let's break some rules now.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about the different set pieces. I want to talk to you about when we first meet Ram, and he's in the barracks, and it's an incredible sequence where he jumps the fence and he starts fighting. It's spectacular. Was that when you and your dad were writing? That's how you visualize it. This big epic sequence.
Yes, that's how exactly how I visualized it. The way we always write is that how are the audience going to watch it first time? What is the kind of emotion they're going to get when they watch it the first time? And also we think in terms about how are they going to feel when they watch it the second time. We always think in those.
Your presumptions that people are going to watch it.
Absolutely.
I'm teasing you.
Absolutely no. I really feel the film that I'm going to do will be watched again and again, just because if they don't, I'm not going to get my money back for the kind of money that we are going to spend. So unless they watch it multiple times, we are not going to get it back. So we have to assume that they are coming to the coming and watching it second time. What happens is in the Ram's introduction, first time when you see, you just see the impossibility of it happening. One guy against 10,000 people, and it feels great. It looks great. And first time when you're watching, there is something behind this guy that is driving him. You exactly don't know what it is, but you understand with his expression that when he's beating the people, there is no anger in him when he's beating that people. right? Even when he's catching that guy and bringing him and throwing on the feet of the officer, there is no anger in him, which feels odd, right? You're beating some people and there is no anger. So there is something about it that intrigues the audience. But when they watch it the second time is when the actual emotion hits him. My God, he's carrying so much of pain. He's actually feeling bad that he needs to beat them. Right? It is a completely whole new experience when they
Do you
watch
think
it the
that the
second
first
time.
time we watch it, because I was noticing the emotions, is it because we're caught up with the action and we're not paying attention to the emoting? Because I want to say, like the scene where Beam is being beaten, and I was swept away from the get-go, his anger, his frustration, his need to rebel, and it's a powerful scene. Can you tell us about designing and directing that scene?
That for me is a beautiful scene in many ways. One of the most beautiful thing about it is the change of characterizations as we see them. Up until that point, Ram is the strong guy who is like very clear in his
Right.
path of what needs to be done. And when the moment came that he has to uh, capture his own friend, uh, mentally he became soft. It was too much for him to take. And even though he's whiplashing his friend, you can see he's crying, he's becoming softer. Uh, he's a completely different person from what we saw until then, where he was like beating tens of thousands of people without
Correct,
blinking
yeah.
an eye. But here you can see that he's visibly getting crushed in his heart. He has become softer. Whereas the innocent guy whom we saw in the beginning, even though he's physically strong, you can see Beam is a very, very innocent guy. But by the time when he comes to in the spot, in the shackles and everything, you can see a visible transformation of him. He has become a very strong at heart. So that transformation for me is the essence of that sequence. Second thing is the people of Telangana, the land from which Bhim came. They have been under oppression for decades, and people revolted against the oppressors many times. And the strongest weapon in all those revolutions in Telangana was the song. Not the weapons, not the guns, not the swords and everything. It was the song. They used song for everything, for celebration, for marriage, for childbirth, for death, to inspire people, to convey their sadness, convey their happiness. For everything they use song. So I love those folklore songs of Telangana. I had a chance to do that there, and I used that.
Walk us through another powerful scene is where the animals are unleashed. But before that, we see he's heartbroken by the fact that she is suffering and she's in so much pain. And the unleashing of the animals comes from his frustration and pain. Tell us about, coming up with the scene and directing it as well.
Uh, uh, like in the beginning, we were discussing for any action, there needs to be a very strong emotional base.
Correct.
So this is the scene where Ram and Bhim, the closest of friends, are going to realize that they are pitted against each other, and they are going to fight.
Correct.
As a story. So that is like that gives us an opportunity for me to really go all out and do an explosive action sequence. Point number one. Point number two, so how do I do that? Beam is a guy from the forest. He doesn't have any friends in the city. He's not rich. And he's one guy and he has to go into this strong villain who has so much of strength. So how does he do it? So that question led me to, okay, he's a tribal. He has a close affinity with animals. Affinity in the sense he has been growing up with animals. He knows how to capture them. So what if he has captured a bunch of animals and let them loose on the people, which will create an havoc, and in the melee he can go get the girl and escape from there. That was his idea. So I thought, oh, fantastic, great idea. But now it comes, how do I open them? How do I unleash them? He can leave one by one into the crowd, but that is not a great visual. We need to have a great visual. Then this thought process led me into having a sequence of all the animals jumping out of cages, and in the middle of that is Beam with a couple of torches coming out. And a great visual, one of the most satisfying visuals in not just in the film, but in my career, I would say.
Yeah, no, it's stunning. And the fact that normally I don't like CGI, I don't like special effects, especially I've already badmouthed Marvel, but in your world, the CGI animals it's mind-boggling because these are exotic animals. You're not going to have them in real life running around. Instead, you visualize them through special effects. Tell us about creating all those animals through VFX.
So over the period of years, the visual effects have become so good in terms of creating the animations, the lighting, the fur, the muzzle movements of the animals. They have improved by leaps and bounds. But still, when I saw many of the films, I saw something was not right. And what I realized was we are not getting the speeds of the animals right. Because a tiger runs at 50 kilometers per hour. On the day of the shoot, because we don't have the tiger there, we are assuming the tiger travels so fast and making the actors react. And when this shot is given to the animator has to fit in the movements of the tiger within that space, which makes it look odd, which is way off. So for that sequence, what we did was we did the animation first, even before one single shot was scanned. We have done the animation of all the animals. We pre-visualized what has to be done and made the actors act to the animation of the animals.
Indulge me and tell me why I love your slow motion that you incorporate into almost all the action sequences. I love to hear your logic behind the slow motion.
Filmmaking has given us a great opportunity of expanding the time or compressing the time.
Correct.
Right? That is what slow motion is essentially, that we have the ability to expand the thing. And I want the audience, if I'm giving some emotion to the audience, I want the audience to stay in that emotion for a certain amount of time. I don't want to hurry it. So that is the reason why I use the slow motion mostly for that. So when Beam is there with that water hose and Ram is there with all the firecrackers burning him, depicting fire and water, I want the audience to stay in that moment for a while. So the slow motions kick in.
This was shot during COVID. Can you tell us what was that like from you had 600 plus, people working under you at the height of COVID.
When the first lockdown happened, we had to shut down everything. We were shooting the animal sequence in March or February or March, I guess, and we had to suddenly stop everything, and for 10 months nothing happened.
Wow.
Nothing, absolutely nothing happened. But I can't complain because the whole world had stopped. It's not just my film. thousands of films stopped across the world, so thousands of businesses, lives stopped. So I shouldn't be complaining. And COVID wreaked havoc with everyone's lives, so it happened with this film also. But we thought, okay, that's what it is. We lost some amount of time, we lost some amount of money. Okay, that's what it is. There is nothing that can be done about it. We have to go forward, think what we do next. We just absorbed the cost and went forward and did it.
And then, how do you feel about the success of the film? Not only huge success in India, I think it's the third highest box office grosser in Indian history, correct? And then in the United States, all over the world, it's a huge box office success. Can you tell us how you feel about that?
The first, when I make films for Indians across the world, in India and across the world, and when the first wave of success came, the first reaction is relief. Okay, because so much money has been spent, the money is coming back. Okay, relief. And second, when the appreciation started coming from, especially America, the first reaction was surprise. Like, why are these white guys and Americans, like, is it true? Or I think these might be the people who went to the theater along with Indians, right? So these are, then those tweets went into hundreds, literally into thousands, and we got appreciation from critics, from reviewers, from filmmakers, from actors, from story writers. And then the reaction was, okay, we did something big than we imagined. I'm still trying to understand why you guys liked it. I know why Indians liked it, but I'm trying to understand why Americans and people across the world liked it. I had a little bit understanding why Japan liked it, because my previous film, Bahubali, did well there. I went there, I spoke to them. I had a little bit understanding why RRR is doing well in Japan. But why it is doing well in the Western world, I'm trying to understand.
I think because people like good cinema.
Obviously, that's that's true.
So have you turned to your dad and said, Dad, sequel, come up with a story, now?
No, it is the reverse. My father always says, let's work on a sequel. Like, all my previous films, like when the moment they become a successful film, he says, let's work on a sequel. So what do you think of this idea? What do you think of that idea? What do you think of this idea? He starts throwing ideas at me. Even with RRR, he did that in the beginning, but even though the ideas were good, I didn't find them to be really compelling, or really didn't feel like, oh, this is a great idea that it should be done immediately. But recently, as we were discussing, my father, my cousin, and myself, we are the core team, discussing, my cousin came up with an idea which I thought was really, really good. So I asked my dad to start developing it, but it is in a very, very initial stage. I have one more film lined up that I'm supposed to do. Yeah. But this is an idea. Like, first, let's develop.
But if it were to happen, the two actors will agree to join you again.
I think so. Once the script is comes out as a great script, as we think it will do, they will.
Well, as what a joy to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Incredible
Thank you
film.
Thank you.